Good morning and welcome and everything else that's going on at the beginning of a new month. If you're in the Canadian side of things, pretty soon will be a Canada Day. If you're in the US side of things, July 4th coming. At the end of the day, I thought I would start with a clip from arguably the hottest topic going on right now in auto or everywhere seems to be AI. But at the end of the day, you know, I thought the best post I saw today was one from Brian Benstock. Brian, if you're listening, great post. Really, really liked it. Kodak had the tech, they had the team, they just didn't have the guts to burn their own playbook. I thought that was one of the best posts I've seen in a long time. But at the end of the day, I think AI may force you to burn your playbook, but more importantly, you always got to be willing to pivot, especially in automotive. But I'm going to start with this quick video and let's get into it. It is an open show, so feel free to join. So before we get lost too much in data, 8 billion ROs. That's I think a small amount of data. I could be wrong, but I think it's pretty small. That's what I think anyway.
Well, you know what it is? Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's true. No, it's good.
Did you come up with the biggest number, or was that one you made up on the fly?
No,
what happened?
It's in my book. It's in the book, buddy. I'll cite my sources.
All right. Here we go.
Life is about connection, having a support system to lean on, and roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
One of the really nice things about Larry, and one of the reasons that we brought him to our dealership, is he's still very much aligned with our core values and with our brand, which is thoughtful and professional service. And because that alignment really worked out well, because he was so committed to the success of others, we really knew that he was the right person to spend time with our sales team, with our managers and each sales consultant. And we're just really thrilled to have a partnership with him. And so we thank him.
How do you adventure? Is it fast? Is it free? Is it clear? Is it rugged? Is it remote? For your next adventure, trust MotoClose for buying, selling, trading, and protecting all of your motorized assets. Powered by Disclose Dealership Management Dashboard, your all-in-one DMS, CRM, menu, lead gen, inventory, staff, client, and deal management solution. Disclose DMD, like a DMS, only better. Mention promo code AutoHub2025 to get special pricing, including waive setup costs, no contract, and your first month's free.
Car dealers often underestimate the power of social media. Are you wondering why my face is plastered in your newsfeed? Are you a GM, dealer principal, or a manager at a car dealership wondering why you see me all the time on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and all over social media? Well, that didn't happen by chance. I target car dealers that are in-market shoppers for social media services, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for you so that you target in-market shoppers for your brand of customers that purchase your vehicles. During my Viato days, helping car dealers appraise and price cars, everyone was asking me, what do I do on social media? What do I do with Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? And this was back in 2016. So here we are 10 years later. I started a company, became an entrepreneur, and now I help car dealers. They either outsource their social media needs to us, or we have a training and education center where we can teach all of your employees how to do social media in-house. 90% of consumers actually follow a business on Instagram. The average adult sits on TikTok for 2 hours a day in the rabbit hole. To learn more information about it or to get a demo from one of my sales associates, click the link below. We would absolutely love to help you.
Fantastic. So let me fix that. Moving this over. Stop. Going over this way. All righty. So in case you missed the show last week, we obviously are always looking to do innovative things. And if you are available Wednesday night, I have joined Larry with Lethal Sales. So that's on Wednesday. We're doing, I think, a Freedom show next week. Should be pretty interesting. And we are streaming that show on multiple platforms now as well. So if you are streaming this, you can definitely check that out. It's Wednesday nights at 5 o'clock my time, 7 o'clock East. And that is a live show. It's a completely different show than this show, just so you know. So just be warned. Not that that's a bad thing. Anyway, Larry was the first person on today. So Larry, maybe you can talk a little bit about you and Career Changers USA. I know you've been traveling around, but also maybe your thoughts on sort of what's been going on in the industry last month and what you see as we go through the summer. I mean, what do you think?
Well, you guys all know what I do. I have a recruiting company for every position in the dealership. Doesn't matter if it's body shop or service techs or lot porters or managers, parts people or title clerks, whatever it is. As far as traveling around, it's pretty interesting. I guess it's a cliche that the more things change, the more they stay the same. The dealerships that appear to have it figured out still have it figured out. And the ones that don't now have one extra added excuse. Oh, it's tariffs, it's this, it's that. You've got, I'm probably the least sophisticated guy on this show. You got Peter Smith and Troy and Doug. You yourself pretty good technically. All I know is I had to call somebody this morning, Ian, and I got 9 different verbal AI bots. I was not happy. I think it still comes down to being a human being, being smart, having a smile on your face, being empathetic, being a good listener. And if you're smart enough to use AI as a tool to help you do those things, I think you'll be fine. But the dealers that I've always known to be successful continue to be successful. They keep an eye on their bottom line. They figure out what they're spending. They try to make fixed operations work. They try to keep their salespeople motivated. I don't know, Troy or Doug, how much you're actually in dealerships. Peter tends to move around a lot. But when was the last time any of you were in a dealership and saw people role playing? The Olympic athletes, if they lose a race by 100th of a second, they go home without a medal. and they practiced for 4 years to run 1 or 2 races. And yet we're in a business where you can have no college education and still make $100,000. We don't practice. We're not prepared. We start stuttering, and particularly coming off of COVID, you think everybody would have rushed back to rebuild the personality, let's rebuild the focus. So I'm sorry if I don't have anything revolutionary to say, but I think if the dealerships that are taking care of their people, right? Again, you guys all know it. I think Steve Jobs had said it originally: if you take care of your people, they'll take care of your customers.
Yeah.
So I'm not really seeing anything dramatically different. We've discussed this, I believe, individually, and you'll probably all agree. I think the savior of a lot of the problems we have will be when leasing comes back full force. Peter's always quoting that the statistics for leasing are way higher in Canada than they are in America. But if we can start making some of these inequities go away from, people get pounded, when there was no cars, they, do you want it or not? I think we'll be fine. I think the industry will survive. I think we'll see a lot of the quote unquote tariffs be minimized as far as their effect. And I don't mean to sound overtly optimistic, but I honestly think everything's going to be okay. Stop worrying and go the hell to work.
I agree 100%. I mean, we were talking earlier about Brian Benstock, and I saw one of his posts this morning, which I thought was one of the better ones I've seen in a long time. He said Kodak had the tech, they had the team, they just didn't have the guts to burn their own playbook. And I agree with that 100%, because we were talking a little bit about his location. But go ahead.
I'll jump off.
Yeah.
Troy and Doug, or even Peter, have you guys ever been to Benstock's store? Any of the three of you? Peter, I did work by accident next to him. I was doing a City Cadillac, Buick GMC, in Long Island City. And literally, if you go out of that store and go to the right, you see his store. It's about as big as your living room. There is absolutely no room. It's landlocked. The traffic is horrible. So Benstock's the classic example of why he should have every excuse why he shouldn't be successful. And instead, I think he's the most successful Honda and Acura guy in the United States.
No, he's number one in the world.
Yeah, okay. So it's right back to the same thing. If you want to find an excuse, you always will. And if you want to find a way to get around your excuses, you'll be fine.
100%. So Troy was on next. I mean, what are you seeing? I mean, obviously you got a lot of data points there, but what are you seeing in terms of? We were talking about leasing. We were talking about obviously customer experience, and obviously burning your playbook and really reinventing that as things change. What do you think?
Well, I mean, a couple of things. First of all, to go back to Larry's point of role playing in practice and getting back to basics and all the stuff that we always talk about. There's that quote, incorrectly attributed or correctly, of give me 8 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 6 sharpening my axe, right? And I have this book right beside my desk from a very wise author, Inner War on Demons, by a fellow by the name of Larry J. Feldman. I'm not sure if there's any relation there, but there's a couple things in there about master yourself first. Don't worry about mastering the industry, worrying about having power over others. It's about take care of business yourself and then be surprised how lucky you get. I think when I look at sort of what's going on right now and the stores that are being the most successful today are, to Larry's point, the ones that aren't worried about the noise right in front of their face. They're going out doing the basic stuff right. And that doesn't mean beating your head against the wall, doing something like you've done for the last 25 years, thinking that that's the only way to do it. There's an auto mile by my house, and there's probably a dozen dealerships. And on that same road, there are 2 Chrysler dealerships that are about a block apart that face each other. And if you drive out, if I go golfing on a Sunday morning, I'll drive out and all the lots are still kind of closed up. But on the way back, all the balloons are up, big inflatable gorillas up. You can smell hot dogs. You can see all the hoods open. I mean, it's just good old fashioned car sales out there. And I think that, AI is great. We sell AI. I would say advertising on the internet is great. Commercials are great, but just good old fashioned get out there and take care of your people. Like Larry was saying, just do the human stuff. and I think that's really huge. What I'll also say is, excuses notwithstanding, things can happen, right? And we had COVID, we had tariffs and supply and all that stuff. And I don't know if any of you guys are Formula One fans, but on the race yesterday, Max Verstappen, 3-time champion, arguably one of the best racers that they've ever had, got taken out by someone in the middle of the field from behind in turn 3, lap 1. His race plan, no matter how perfectly executed it was going to be, was out the window by something he did not see coming because it literally hit him from behind. So, it's not just about doing the daily stuff really, really well and planning and executing on your plan, but it's also being prepared for those things when they do hit your bow, that it's not going to take your ship out because you got some practice on how to recover from stuff like that.
Oh,
Right,
100%.
it's Darwin. It's survival of the fittest, and the fittest are always those that can adapt.
Doug, A to Z or A to Z, depending on where you are. Tell me more about what your thoughts are. I mean, obviously change is constant in every industry, including auto, but how do you, and I love Troy's point, and it's kind of like Mike Tyson. I mean, you all have something to say until someone hits you in the head, but obviously that's been going on a lot lately. I mean, what are you seeing out there?
Well, first off, I would echo, the Brian Benstock comment. He's been a client of ours for over 3 years. His accurate story. He had the foresight years ago to look at doing the one-person sales model.
Yep.
Did it in his accurate store, was way ahead of the curve on that, and obviously continues to dominate. And I think that's really what the industry needs. What's interesting is I was just at CX Auto a couple of weeks ago, and it was all about AI. And AI this, AI that. And the conclusion I drew were 2 things. One, we're bringing in AI to do things because we can't just get the humans to do it. We can't get them to do the right thing. And I think there's a lot of dealers that look at that and say, if my people would just do this, I'd be fine. And I think that's a kind of a sad statement. But also, one of the presidents of one of the companies said, hey, in the end, it's still a relationship-based business. It's still face-to-face. And all the AI in the world can't replace a relationship, can't replace that interpersonal connection. So dealers that are still leaning into that and are sharpening their tools to take advantage of that, I think, are the dealers that are well-positioned going forward. The last thing that was interesting was today, as I was driving in, I was listening to a CDK study that said ease of purchase is basically at an all-time low since they started tracking it. It went down 13 points in the past month. And most of that is due to credit hassles, trying to get approved, trying to get, as Larry said, people are buried in their trades, all of that. So I do think that there are some challenges, but they're not challenges we haven't seen in the past. There's certainly been credit issues in the past where we've had to deal with it. But I do think that, what I'm seeing is dealers are really a lot of the dealers I'm talking to are blocking out the outside noise and really just focusing on what's happening between their walls. And that's really the smart thing to do. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll throw it to the esteemed Peter Smith and see what he has to say.
Well, I had a quick comment before that. Thanks for that. Which was I was listening to an interview this morning, a guy out of Austin, Texas, and he says, "Don't blame the media for the bias; it's their agenda. That's the problem." And I thought that was really interesting because there's all this talk about old media versus new media. The reality is that's just their mission statement. It's not about left or right. It's not about up or down. It's about, this is our message. We're going to stick to it. And you don't see a lot of people playing outside that message. And I think that's where you see people like Benstock and others going, hey, let's do things differently, not because everyone else is doing them differently, but because it's the right thing to do. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is you got to be ahead of that curve. When I interviewed him years ago, he said, I work 7 days a week because I need 6 to get ahead of my competition, but I need another day just to make sure I got a big lead or something to that effect. Anyway, go ahead, Peter.
Well, I would have to say that people, in my opinion, the dealers are starting to actually wake up and smell the coffee. They're realizing that they can't measure against 2021, 2022 numbers. They have to measure against 2019 numbers. And they're now realizing that tech has exploded to the point where we've had more tech innovations in the last couple of years than ever, and that partially because of the advent of so-called AI. But I'm sure Doug and Troy will agree with me here, and Randy as well, that AI has been around for decades with machine learning, and it's just becoming a mainstream thing. Now, where I see it is the brakes are being pumped, and they're saying, well, what do we need? Where do we go? And we're going to see, I think, a 6-month lull in sales because people are working off fear, and they don't want to jump into a contract. And we know that most dealers want 30 or 90-day contracts where they can test what they're doing just so they can pivot. So I think there's going to be a lot of fear in the next 6 months with dealers. What direction do I go in? What platforms do I use? Where is it going to benefit me? And they're going to be jumping. They're going to be like, and a bunch of us are old enough to remember Mexican jumping beans. And that's the way I see the dealers right now. In the next 6 months, I think it'll tail out. It'll start calming down after that because people will realize how to actually get their tech stacks in order, and that's one of the biggest things that we're going to find in the next 6 months.
Cool.
Hey, Peter, isn't it amazing that all these dealers will pay a fortune? They'll pay trainers like me. They'll pay Doug Reeves. They'll pay you. They'll pay Brandy. Get me more business. Why the hell aren't they going through their orphan files and making sure their guys are in service in the morning? This is like me and Peter going, man, I wish we had some money and there's a bag of cash sitting on the table. Yeah, where the hell can we find it? How about this bag now? That's too easy. We just pick that up and spend it.
I have a guy in a Ford store who told me he wanted to drop his CDK bill by $500. He had it in his head that it was $500. That was the number he needed to get back into massive profitability. And so I was talking with a service manager, and they had zero process for following up on any customer declined work in the shop. Zero. On average, we see between 90 and 150,000 a month in generated revenue, and even at a terrible closing ratio of 25%. It's a hell of a lot more than $500. I was trying to explain that to the dealer, and he just could not see it. Interesting. You talk about process, like it's the simple stuff. Sometimes people still aren't doing.
100%.
They asked Einstein, what's the difference between genius and stupidity? And he said, genius has its limits. There is no limit on stupidity. We see it around us every day, where people go out of their way to screw up.
Well, I just add to what you both just said. The number one source of income for a dealership right now is in first-party data, but they're not going after it. And Tim Hayden and I, who's is an absolute brilliant mind in this area, is we've had adamant conversations that it's crazy. As you said, Troy, they're leaving 6 figures on the table every single month. I had a dealer in the Toronto area who asked me to help them, and I said, okay, I can do that. Give me your 5 top problems. They told me their 5 top problems. In that, I said, you're losing about $250,000 a month on the table. Great. Can you come up and see us? For what? To tell us where it is and discuss how much you're going to charge me. I said, well, I can tell you what I'm going to charge you before I get in the car to come see you. And so I gave them a number, which was minuscule. I was just doing it because I had time. They turned me down. they turned me down because I was offering to write their ship for $1,500 and they turned me down. $250,000 a month.
Oh.
And I said, enjoy your business.
Exactly.
Peter, we better let Brandy speak. It looks like her head's about to explode with ideas.
So Brandy, give us your thoughts. You deal with a lot of dealers and all kinds of different sides of the industry.
Well, and you guys touched on so many things, and yes, my head is blowing up because, change is only sought out when problems happen. And everybody wants to be like Brian, but nobody wants to proactively discover. Even the dealers, as the example you're giving, Peter, even the dealers that want to discover what their problems are, to fix them fractionally, they don't want to. So I have this saying, you can't reason with unreasonable. And at that stage, it's just as similar as you can't fix stupid, right? So, yeah, I recognize kind of where it falls off and where I can help. But I also feel like, everybody wants the change. They're even asking for the help. You talk even about the AI side. I have dealers that they want AI, but they don't even know how to work their own phone. Do you know what I mean? So it's just such a fully loaded conversation the old dial-up. But it's such a fully loaded conversation where you want change, they know they want change. The second that they hear what the change is, though, for us, it's such a fine line with walking on eggshells to make sure nobody is offended when we're talking about the change that's needed too. And so there's just so many variables that tie into walking on eggshells, addressing the problems, but also solving them, and doing so fractionally. Purple Cow. That's all I got to say is Purple Cow is the book of the century when it comes to being different and actually making yourself stand out. But like Larry said, these are changes that, this is 101. I don't even know what to say. God. This is truly 101.
I was in a store the other day and they had a training boardroom. And so we were in the training boardroom just because it was a little bit smaller and we were having a conversation with the dealer principal, operations manager, and a couple other people. And I'm only talking about this, Brandy, because you brought up walking on eggshells, not wanting to offend anybody. And they were talking about how they needed to fix their gross profit problem. And so we were looking around in the training room, and there's the usual road to sales signs and other stuff that everyone's got in the training room. But probably 10 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper taped to the wall all over the place. It said, how many leads did you get today? How many leads did you get today? The goal for leads is 110. How many leads did you get today? Last time I checked, the bank does not accept payment in leads. And when these guys are sitting here beating their head against the wall about need more leads, need more leads, need more leads, well, you need more leads because your conversion isn't changing. You can't change your conversion. So you're going out and getting top funnel, hot garbage leads that you're probably overpaying for with 17 different lead sources to do what with? Sell another car a month? And if you could sell
Troy, and they're going to 17 other dealers too at the same time.
Well, and that's the thing is no one's there's no secret sauce out there with that stuff. I mean, a Google AdWord costs the same no matter who you are. So when you look at the whole thing, and these guys worrying about leads instead of conversions, they're worrying about selling more cars instead of making sure you got the right cars on the lot. They're not having a zero fixed ops process for declined work. It's the amount of stuff that people spend dumb money on or don't spend the right money in the right direction on is chaos. And when I see the opportunity to take a closing ratio in fixed ops from 25% to 40%, I mean, the amount of just pure gross profit that shakes down at the bottom of that is staggering. And what's equally staggering in my view is I have yet to find a dealership that actually has that accurate fixed ops service advisor closing percentage with data to back it up. Almost nobody tracks it.
But what about a post-mortem though? What about just a post-mortem in service? In sales, 100% should be done all the time. But in service, if I've got, 100 ROs a day or 50 ROs a day or 300 a day, and I've got a lot of declined ROs, that should be a conversation every day in the service side of the house going, okay, well, why are my declined ROs so high? Like, they're here. Like, what am I doing wrong?
It's
And they've
like
got no follow-up. They've got no follow-up process. Troy, it's the analogy I like to use. I know I got a bunch of Canadians on, but if you allow me to use a baseball analogy instead of hockey.
That's fine.
Trying to get all the gross without proving all the value is like trying to hit a grand slam in baseball when there's nobody on base. You can't drive home and achieve gross when there's no value in it. Listen, I love, and I'm not any different than any of you fine folks. I love opportunity. Brandy, you'll laugh your butt off with this. I did a favor for a guy in Virginia, and I had one big problem. Nobody was coming in for interviews. So I'm driving down from Philadelphia to Virginia, and I call my girl, Roseanne. Some of you know her. She's unbelievable, smart, great. You'd love her, Brandy. She's like your twin, just really all there. And I said, the hell with this. Let's get on the phone and pull every one of these goofballs. All of a sudden, we went from one interview on Saturday to 27. And the guy said, man, you're unbelievable, Phil. And I said, yeah, it was easy. It wasn't easy or hard. If you want to lay in your underwear and watch reruns, do it. Be a bum. But if you're going to go to work, isn't it more fun to be busy the whole damn day and look at your watch or your iPhone and go, shit, I can't believe it's time to go home. That's what blows my mind. Troy, I really made a lot of dough as a salesman before I became a partner. There's no mystery. I couldn't stand to be bored. I couldn't stand to stare out the window all day and say, man, I can't believe how slow time's going. And listen, I had a union shop. You talk, Troy, have you ever worked with a union shop? It's like eating soup with a fork. It just ain't easy, okay? But you find a way to make it work by buddying up with the people, by demanding it. Brandy, you're going to laugh at me, and Peter's already heard me do this trick. I said to every guy the same thing. You're the best guy I have. And why are you always hollering? Because you're the best guy I have. I expect more. Oh, thanks, boss. You all have boyfriends, girlfriends. It's Canada. You might have a boyfriend and a girl. I know you're a little liberal when you get that north. But we know how to say things to people to get them excited and make them feel appreciated. Why the hell don't we do it with our staff? I mean, listen, I love that most dealers and service managers, sales managers have no clue how to retain their people. They're just making me more and more money. But I almost wish my recruiting business would shut down and I could just train people. Yeah. But it ain't going to happen anytime soon.
We got a comment.
And Brandy, feel free to steal the baseball analogy, but do it quick because baseball's in a lot of trouble. All anybody wants to do is watch their ball, not be a home run and get thrown out at second base. Kind of like a hockey player not being willing to check into the ports. See, I made Peter happy when I said the hockey analogy.
So I got a comment from Charlie Dye. He says they don't believe they can control the closing ratio is the reason. And I wanted to get a comment from Doug since Doug's been kind of quiet, shocking. On the closing ratio side, to me, when I was doing car deals, whether I was a manager or whether I was a salesperson or internet manager, I was always looking at the end of the deal. If it didn't happen, how could I do better? Like, what could I do differently that maybe, because I always found that there was a part of that deal that went sideways, which is why I didn't get it. And it was usually something I did or wasn't aware of. I mean, what do you think?
I think it comes down to the reason people are so guarded with information that makes customers leery. I think dealers get a lead and a customer asks a question and they won't just simply answer the question. It's all about get them in the store. It's all about, no, come in here and then we'll talk about it. I think that the dealerships that have nothing to hide, you say, yeah, this is the price of the car. Yes, here's whatever they want to know. Give them that. That helps increase the closing ratios. I also think that there's a tendency for salespeople, and we've seen this through Hive Analytics, where certain people have way too many leads and they can't attend to them, while others don't have enough and they're great at them. So there's not enough of an evaluation of where these leads are going and getting them to the right people. So I think there's a lot of things there, but a lot of it, I think, just comes down to, are you really trying to have a good, solid, transparent relationship with this customer, or are you trying to trick them into coming into the store? Because tricking's not going to work.
Yeah.
Well,
when you look
That's
at
a huge-
internet sources, I mean, obviously depends on the source for the closing ratio. But if you're giving this guy 110 to Troy's point, and he's closing 5, maybe you shouldn't be giving him 110.
Well, I think it's less, talking about closing ratio is a little bit different when you're talking about car sales and when you're talking about fixed stops.
Yeah.
Because a lot of dealerships don't treat service advisors like a sales position, and they really should. Because when you think about going to a restaurant and the server will come up and they'll take your order, they'll tell you what the specials are, and then they walk away. Well, the great ones upsell you on the drinks. They upsell you on the bottle of wine they've got. They've got a great coffee. Have you looked at the dessert menu? There's a way to get those average tickets up. And I think that in a lot of dealerships, again, we're talking about cost cutting. We're talking about a lack of really good, strong employees in the market. If your service advisors are too busy taking phone calls because they don't have the right phone call methodology, Brad, I threw that one to you, or they don't have the ability to follow up because they don't have the shop loading capability because their ERO isn't set up right. So when I think about somebody, so again, going back to Charlie Dye, he's in my neck of the woods, so I know him very well by reputation. You're talking about fixed ops, and you're talking about getting those closing ratios up on that declined work, because you got a pool of $100,000 worth of denied work every month you're generating. Well, at a 40%, gross profit margin, you'd be crazy not to get max out all that labor you can. And then you've got the other way to deal with the problem is you look at what Stellantis is doing. They're going to raise the powertrain warranty on Rams to 10 years. Well, they don't last 4. So that means that Stellantis has basically created a welfare state for their fixed ops managers in all of their dealerships, because they're just going to pump them full of income so that they can sell more cars in the front end. And I really think that the best dealers are the ones that, like we said off the top of the call, they're not just thinking about how many cars I'm going to sell. They're thinking about their whole operation. When you look at fixed ops, just the amount of money, like Doug was saying, the amount of money sitting in a pile on the floor that no one's willing to bend down and pick up because their knees are bad, it just makes no sense to me.
Well,
Hey,
and I
Troy,
also
Stellantis
think
had to
that-
make that move. I have some friends that are Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram dealers, and right next on their iPhone, right next to their wife's name and phone number, they have the suicide prevention. So I think they at some point to get a little more creative to help their dealers.
But I also think, and Peter, you touched on this, is there's been such a preponderance of technology that's been thrust upon dealerships that all too often dealership staff spends more time with the keyboard and less time with the customer. And that's affecting things too, because they're just fighting technology and having to do all of this rekeying of data and all of that. And it's just ruining, it's funny, I'll call small stores in like North Dakota or South Dakota, and some of them don't even have a CRM, so we don't need it. We know our customers, we know everything, we handle everything smoothly. There's a lot to be said in the wisdom of a small town dealer, because they get it right, because they have to get it right. And there's an awful lot of focus on, these big city dealerships, but the bread and butter of it's in middle America, it's in the smaller towns. And what are they doing right? Because they're not printing cash to the degree that others are, but they also don't seem to have a lot of stress. And they also seem to be their customers love them and they're loyal.
Yeah, I worked with a dealer.
To that,
I worked with a dealer years ago.
But think what Troy said about the upsell. If the upsell usually comes because the waitress or the server is really nice, oh yeah, no, you should definitely get that. I just had it. It's fabulous. If it was a robot that you were pushing buttons on the screen, you wouldn't have that same personal relationship. Don't you think?
No, you buy people buy from people they like, and you have to get them to like it. The other thing I would say from a service perspective, just one man's opinion, when they come out with a laundry list of upsells, and I say, you know what, I think I'll just push it till next time. Nobody steps back and say, well, okay, why don't we do one of these today and a few of them next time? That way, because for a lot of people, it's going to be budgetary. You hit me with a $3,000 potential bill that I wasn't expecting. Well, crap, I know I'm going to have to do it, but I'm not going to do it now. We'll just do one of them now.
Yeah, we have
Doug, a lot of them are going to
Just talk
finance.
to them.
There's a lot of financing options starting to come across because everybody's starting these days.
Yeah, we had another
This is just going to
comment.
be kicking the can.
Another comment from Charlie. True, too many service advisors let the customers walk away. No fight for the sale, no asking questions, just accepting declines is too common. They don't let it happen in sales anywhere near as much. And I would agree there. But more importantly, to your point, Doug, I remember when I worked with Nissan, there was a dealer on Vancouver Island who wanted a way to finance an oil change. I'm not kidding. And customers like, wow, I don't know if I want to do that.
So
Oil change today. It was hilarious.
Couple things on that is I was on Service Drive Live on Sunday morning. It was on Service Drive training, service advisor training, and all the things that are thrust upon a service advisor, yet they have no sales training whatsoever. They have service advisor training, but they don't have any sales training whatsoever. So again, you can't rely on that. Second thing is with Doug, what he said about small town dealers, they're not always going for the upsell. They're looking at the client first rather than the gross first. So they're looking at retention over acquisition. If we look at, and there's a number of Canadians on this call, we all know Auto Canada and their recent troubles in Chicago. They got fined $20 million because of junk upsells and a number of other things. Now, Auto Canada settled for $20 million, but the VP is up for $216 million fine. And they're talking about the corporate umbrella being broken. Well, the bigger dealership groups are going to have to find out another way. And that's going to come down to compliance, FTC, all kinds of things that are going to happen. And this is that's why I said you're going to see with this lawsuit and what's going on, you're going to see a 6-month lull until this gets settled out. Because there is a lot of fear in the industry right now. And I know, and the crazy thing is, if the FTC is successful in finding Jimmy, that then he can't even declare bankruptcy to get away from it. It puts him in a situation that his life is over, and it's a tough call. But this is what's happening out there. Dealers are scrambling because and we heard it. We heard it in 2023 where dealers went to their sales teams and said, "Why didn't you save? Why didn't you take that massive COVID money that you made selling cars at $20,000 above list price? Why didn't you save that money rather than buying a new boat or buying this or putting a pool in your house or this and all these things? Why didn't you save that? You should have had the intelligence to save that." Yeah. But dealers now are in the same position because now they've gone out and done the exact same thing, and they're not making their 10% margins that they were, and they're back down to the 1.8 to 2.2% margins, and they're scrambling and they're cutting expenses and they're doing everything and they're scrambling to actually find more gross. And where are they getting the gross? They're getting in the F&I department because they're not getting it on the front end.
But that wasn't news to anybody, Peter. I mean, I remember seeing Steve Greenfield years ago now talk about this point in time and talking about where dealers were before and where they are now and where they're going back to. And the reality is relying on F&I alone to make everything go is a mistake. What you need to be doing is spending the time to train your teams in all departments to overcome objections, to be of help to the customer, to streamline the process. And the reason I bring this up is I worked with a dealership in the small town of Fort Capel, Saskatchewan. So the whole population of the town is 2,500 people. They have one car dealer. They're inviting everyone to this private sale. that was in their customer list. But the mistake they made was they didn't invite everyone in the town. The town ain't that big. So what they did, they didn't get fined, but they got people annoyed because it's like, how come I'm not invited? So I think part of it is, what are you doing today that makes sense for your customers? But more importantly, what are you doing in every department to upskill your people so that they can just handle those 3 to 5 objections? Any product or service has a max of 7 to 14, but really when you bring it down, it's 3 to 5. And it made me think of back when I owned a Fiat. Unfortunately for me, I was at a dealer trying to get this Fiat serviced, and the guy was trying to sell me fuel injection cleaning. And I said, well, I don't really need that. But he gave up right after he pitched it. He didn't even know what to say. He's like, no, okay, next. So it wasn't about the service or the upsell or anything else. It was about just a lack of understanding of what people might object to, just what they might object to. And I think that's also true in sales to a limited degree. But again, when you're looking at it, you've got to look at, as a dealer or as a manufacturer, or even as a vendor, if those 3 to 5 things you can drive more revenue, why don't you pick one of them and get real good at that? Whether that's orphan customers, whether that's selling more in service, whether that's more leasing. Once you get that one down to a science, let's look at number 2. Like the 3 to 5 that they're not doing right, okay, but they can't even do 1 or 2 right in some cases. So let's just do that 1 or 2 right, and then let's move down the list. I think you got to look at what you can change, right? Versus changing everything. Everything's broken. That's a mistake. Mm-hmm. Everything isn't broken. Let's start with the one that's easy to do. Let's start, what's the skill level of the dealer? How quickly can they change things? Let's start with something easy. Let's get that done over the next 30 days, 60 days.
It's also, there's that guy on the Netflix documentary who's trying to live forever, Brian Johnson.
Yeah, crazy person.
So he's biohacking himself trying to live till he's 150. And they're going through, and he's talking about all the supplements he takes. And he takes about 50 to 60 pills a day. Yeah. And they're like, well, which ones, how are you testing the efficacy of each one? He's like, well, we're kind of doing it all, and then we'll sort of peel it back after that. And it's like, well, that's the opposite of what you should do. Is you try one, does it work? Yes, no, move on to the next one. But if you try to fix everything with no strong plan, well, if you do get a marginal uptick, which part of that plan are you going to attribute that to? And are you throwing some cost after something that's not going to work because it's muddied in with all the other stuff? And, I think really one of the things that, you said it earlier on, Ian, when you're talking about lead sources, I think that, internet marketing guys and general sales managers are quite good at knowing where their leads are coming from. And I don't think there's any question that data is really there. But I bet you maybe 1/10 of the people that come in for service fill out that survey and tell them how they found out about the store, and so their lead source and fixed ops is, maybe it is the ape on my roof that's bringing everyone in because, I don't know what a inflatable gorilla salesman makes, but I know in Langley, BC, they do pretty well.
It was the gorilla. That's why I gave in. I saw the gorilla and I said, you went up the balloons. Look at this gorilla, man. Where did you get that? I even saw, I think it was Canadian Tire with one of those car balloons with Canadian Tire on it. I was like laughing. I'm like, even there have no clue what they're doing. It's like, wow. Yeah, I agree with you there 100%. I mean, when you're looking at it going, and I worked with dealers for almost 15 years, and I was in dealers every single month. And I remember producing reports and going, okay, here's the 3 to 5 things you should change. And I think the mistake looking back was, here's the one thing. Just fix this one thing. Pick this one thing off the list of 3. We'll cross out the other 2. Do this one thing. And then come back and go, you got it done. Great. Let's look at number 2. You got number 1 handled. I think part of the problem is that sometimes we're asking too much change. I mean, when you look at change in general, even in your personal life, if you have some bad habits, pick the bad habits, smoking, drinking, whatever it is. If you try and change everything at the beginning of a year, what's the chance of that happening? 0. 0, pretty much. So pick one thing, stick with it for 90 days, get it solved, pick another thing. And I think part of the challenge that people working with dealers have is they're frustrated, but at the same time, the dealer just wants to get better. I want to just get better. I mean, recoup all that big pile of money I'm missing in the corner, but if I can recoup 20,000 a month, that's a win. Like that's the way I look at it anyway. Doug,
And
go ahead.
it bounced back what Troy said. If you focus on one thing, you can measure if it's improved and what your ROI is and what you threw in the solution to make it improve.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I used to work a lot with BDCs many years ago. And the thing that always amazed me was you could train a service BDC one way and train a sales BDC a different way. Very rarely could they do both. So adapting that sort of sales mentality to service may work, but you've got to teach them, to Troy's point, the basics. Okay, you're selling these 5, upsells at a steakhouse. You're selling these 5 upsells at a service department. What happens when you try? Well, they say this and they say that. Okay, what happens when they try, when you don't sell this and that? Like, give them a game
You miss
plan.
100%.
Yeah.
You miss 100% of the shots you never take, right?
100%. But what I found was funny when I was training BDC people who most of the time didn't have any car experience is I'd say, hey, let's come up with the excuses. There was always 15 to 20. It always came down to 3 to 5. They didn't change. Service, I'm sure it's the same. I can't afford it. I don't need it. I'm not sure why I need it right now. But that's a reason to lean in, listen, and say, okay, well, here's what's going to happen if you don't do it. It could happen. I don't know. But, like if your brakes are done, like you should probably prioritize that on the list of things to do, right? So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's the way I look at it. But when you're looking at things moving forward, obviously people are going to be keeping cars longer. We all know this because of all kinds of factors. How do you think dealers are going to be able to get better at that, being that they're going to have to? And we're almost out of time, shockingly. So, Doug, what do you think?
I guess I'm not clear on what your question is. How are they going to get better at dealing with the fact that people are keeping cars longer?
Yeah, like if cars used to be 7 to 10 years, 3 to 5. Now they're 13.
Mm-hmm.
So dealers have a huge opportunity if they're paying attention to it to say, hey, they're going to fix it.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's
they're going to fix it.
And
So get good at that, right?
The answer is in the question. I mean, it's obvious that dealers have to become an attractive alternative to maintain these vehicles and, again, become their source for all things auto. I mean, as Peter says, it's retention. It's all about that. I mean, that's what you got to do is you have to, it's amazing to me how many times I'll talk to a dealership and they have an incredible, on a variable side, a credible process. They're doing it really well and they're not marketing it at all. People aren't even aware of it. So I think dealerships have to do a combination of awareness, marketing, and truly live into what they believe, and that's how they're going to take advantage of it.
That's a great idea. Larry, what do you think they can do on service to fix the cars that they know they're going to have to fix, but more importantly, tell that story as to why?
Well, this dials back into what Troy was saying at the very beginning. If people are keeping their cars longer, and we all agree you need a whiff them, well, what's in it for me, for the customer, for your guys or ladies to be motivated to do, wouldn't that give you a great opportunity to offer people an extended service contract? Listen, you're keeping your car longer. Wouldn't it be nice to have a minimal payment and no matter what happens, you're protected? Troy said earlier, leads. Well, every salesman on earth would kill to have 7 leads in a day, but in the meantime, or 7 customers walk in, but you go into some service departments, there's 100 people there in the morning. So I think if we just got back into focusing how important each customer is, that they're annuities, not annoyances, and used everything, because I think we'll all agree every negative is just an opportunity. So let's make our people better. Let's teach them, as Ian said, that if they say no on the upsell on all 7, well, how about if we do 1 or 2? I just hate to see you wait because it might get more expensive. Let's minimize the cost. You probably have enough goods. Again, what a human can do that AI can't do. But I definitely think reaching out to people with extended service contracts is a foolish way not to approach it because everybody is keeping their cars long.
100%. Brandy?
Yeah, you guys have touched on a few things, and I'm just kind of going to fly on the wall, but I think really, Troy, especially when you mentioned, you went into the dealers boardroom and they had the banners and the leads and the leads and more leads. And first and foremost, if we are giving leads and we don't know or haven't investigated that closing side, whether it be on service or sales, we're giving the leads to the wrong people. Also, you know, every dealer has this dealer setup guide, right? We all bought the little brochure, the little hang up posters that you can put in your sales meetings, and you fill them out, etc. But nobody talks about the why. The why. You know, why are we doing this? We, you know, I think that staff is so often left out of why, and often it's because even the people that are leading don't know, because this is the way we've always done it, right? They don't know why we're doing it. We just have always done it this way. So really important to explain to staff the why of why it's being done, etc. And I also think, you know, there's just in any dealership, there's just such a quick method to result on like the shift of responsibility, right? It's, oh, service did it. No, it's not my fault. It's parts did it, or whoever, right? So, you know, same with putting all the gross, you know, to be in the back end where they're giving cars away. Well, that doesn't help anybody, actually. It doesn't help service. It doesn't help parts, and it technically doesn't help finance. So I just think it puts everybody in vulnerable situations to do things that they shouldn't or wouldn't do. And we really have to just focus on, as Larry has mentioned a million times, Peter has mentioned a million times, the basics.
Fantastic. Troy?
Well, you know, and I think it's all been said today, but what I would tail it back to is a lot of the stuff we talked about. These aren't takes that I created. We're a bunch of like-minded people in the same business talking about all the stuff we already see every day. I think where it breaks down, in my opinion, is when confronted with these things that need to change in order to improve, people realize, oh my God, this is hard work and I don't want to do it, or I don't have the will to do it, or my people are going to push back. It's like, I want to lose 20 pounds really, really bad, but I have to go to the gym 5 days a week, and I have to eat better, and I have to drink more water, and I can't drink like 7 beers a day. I don't know if I want it that bad. And
Can't AI do it for me? Can't AI just do it all for me?
Exactly. Yeah, get AI to go to the gym for me. I love that. But I think really at the end of the day, when you look at the amount of hard work that it's going to take on all the people involved, and if you're in service, it's your service advisors are going to have to go through some training. They're going to have to face some objections, learn how to overcome them. In sales, it's going to be working that service drive, like Larry said. Like that is a gold mine of people. Like I pulled into a dealership the other day, sitting in the lot. I parked like 3 rows back because I don't want anyone I don't want to take up prime parking space. And this kid had me maybe 18, 19 years old, walks up to me, and he's just waiting for me to open my door. And the second he was like, hey, what brings you in today? And so I had a quick chat with him and told him I'm a vendor, but I said, well, you're standing out here in the lot looking for us. Have you thought about standing in the service drive? And he said, why would I do that? It's like, because there's people driving right into your building, bud. And he's like, nobody ever told me that. There you go, Larry.
100%. 100%. Peter, last comment, last word.
Sure.
Oh, we got bullseye from Rachel Schaefer, just so you know.
So the statement is, and I look at it. Look at a dealership like Al Hendricks Toyota in Florida. They push 14,000 cars through their service department on a monthly basis. That's about 160,000 ROs a year. How many customers are there? It's massive. How many cars can we acquire there? The whole business should be centered around that focus. And that's for every single dealership out there. We need to start looking at acquisition from our own customers first, and rather than acquisition from new customers. We can't work on the gym membership or the cellular phone membership subscription model. We have to work on actual insurance, and I'm going to say insurance, house insurance, life insurance. They will look at a annuity model And that's something that Larry says all the time. We have to work on annuities rather than acquisition. And once we recognize that, we will do a lot better. But we've changed because of the cell phone. It's instantaneous gratification. We want to know that our emails have been read, our texts have been read. We want that instant action that is not applicable to our business. What is applicable to our business is instant reaction for our customers, and that's how we're going to retain them.
Fantastic. Charlie Dye, last comment. I find the best results come from culture. Leaders have to take responsibility and create the culture to inspire the team to want to perform at their best. That's the hard part. I think that's a great comment to end the show today. And have yourself a great week. All the best on the 1st and the 4th. And have yourself a great month. Bye for now.